This is the Lamy Aion. It's a full-size minimalist fountain pen, which is mostly made out of anodized aluminum. It's available in a variety of colors, and today I have this one in silver. The top finial is flat, and then it has a rounded off edge to a cap, which is straight all the way down. In the middle of the cap, we can see a chrome-plated spring-loaded clip, which is a bit of a fingerprint magnet. On the side of the clip, we have the Lamy logo, and it's easy to actuate from the back, but you can also easily pull it from the bottom. Underneath the clip, on the cap, we can see 3 little ribs, which also helps give this clip good grasp. At the bottom of the cap, we have a very thin band, which is free of any markings, and then a step down to the barrel. The cap pulls off to reveal a stainless steel nib. And this nib is a little bit different than the standard Z50, which we see on models like the Lamy Safari. This one's shoulders are just a little bit more rounded off. And at the bottom, we can see an F for fine and Lamy. On the back of the nib, we have the standard black Lamy plastic feet. The grip section has a very small flare-up and then a taper going back to the barrel. And this section has a sandblasted finish, which gives you good grip and also provides a bit of contrast to the rest of the pen body. The barrel has a very gradual taper thinning down to the bottom, where we see a flat finial with rounded off edges. In the hand, the pen is a very comfortable length, suitable to use for both short notes and long writing sessions. It's lightweight with a center of gravity just in front of the crook of my hand. And because this grip section is so long, it will accommodate many different hand sizes and grip styles. And the cap posts deeply and securely. For me with medium-sized hands, it transfers the weight just about to the crook of my hand and makes for a very comfortable writing experience. In terms of size comparisons, here's the Lamy Aion, Atypical Pilot G2 rollerball pen, and your standard Sharpie. Before we disassemble the Lamy Aion, I wanted to take a moment to compare it with a few other Lamy fountain pens. First up, I have the aforementioned Lamy Safari. This is one of Lamy's entry-level fountain pens, and it's also one of their most iconic. I have this one here in terracotta, but it's available in a variety of other colors. Next up, I have another fairly upscale Lamy pen. This is the Lamy Studio. This one's also available in a variety of colors, and I have it here in stainless steel. I feel like the styling shares a lot of similarities with the Aion, but is maybe a little bit more refined. And to round things off, I have another iconic Lamy pen. This is the Lamy 2000. Unlike the rest, this one is made out of a brushed Macrolon finish, and it features a gold nib, which we'll take a look at. This one, like the Aion, also has a spring-loaded clip, and unlike the rest of Lamy's models, this one is a piston filler. Let's take a look at these pens with their caps removed. All caps pull off, and in the uncapped form, we can see the Aion is a bit longer than the rest of these pens, and the Lamy 2000 is by far the shortest. Let's take a closer look at these sections and nibs. All nibs are stainless steel, with the exception of the Lamy 2000. This one has a 14 karat gold semi-hooded nib. The rest of these nibs are fully exposed. The Safari and the Studio both have the same Z50 nib, which you see on the vast majority of Lamy pens, with the exception of the Aion and the 2000. The grip section on the Safari starts with a flare out, and then it has a fairly controversial tapering triangular shaped grip section. The Studio also has a flare out followed by a taper. The Aion has a very gradual taper going back, and the Lamy 2000 also has a very gradual taper, but it's not quite as long as the rest. Let's take a look at these pens with their caps posted. All caps post deeply and securely. The Studio is the only one that has a positive click, and the 2000 is the most compact of the pens on the table. In order to disassemble the Lamy Aion, you may find grippy materials are useful to have, as well as some Scotch tape. The cap pulls right off, and if we take a look inside, towards the bottom we will see a plastic cap liner, but that appears to be friction fit. So for regular cleaning and maintenance, I do not recommend removing that liner. I would just run this under warm water, and if you have stubborn ink stains, soak it with a little bit of mild detergent. The grip section unscrews from the barrel. And there we can see a Lamy converter. I purchased this one separately. The pen originally just came with a cartridge, but in either case, you simply pull it out of the back of the grip section. In order to remove this nib, we're going to grab a piece of Scotch tape, put it right over the top of the nib, and give it a pull. I haven't found an easy way to remove this feed from the grip section, so for typical cleaning, I'll take a bulb syringe and insert it into the back of the grip section, put the pen into some fresh water, and force water in and out until that water runs clean. For the converter, I've had some trouble disassembling these in the past, but this one seems to disassemble fairly easily. I grab this collar with my gripping materials and pull it through the back. And then you can pull the piston unit through the back of the chamber. And if you want, you can remove the rod from the knob. At this point, the pen is fully disassembled. In order to reassemble, I am going to start with the piston unit. We'll put the rod into this knob and screw it down some. If you want, you can add some silicone grease to these threads for smooth operation and to the head to ensure that it seals well against this chamber. But right now it seems to be working fine, so I'm not going to. That just simply slides into the back of the chamber, and then we're going to slide the collar over that. And at this point, we have a fully functional converter. I'm going to go ahead and put this into the back of our grip section, and then we'll grab our nib. The nib has two fins on the side which hug rails on the side of the feed. We're going to make sure that those are right over the rails and then push it in. And that nib is fully installed. We'll then reattach our barrel as well as our cap. At this point, we're ready to ink up. But before we do, I want to show that you can swap in the standard Lamy Z50 nib. Again, this is the nib that you also see on many other Lamy fountain pens, including the Safari. So let me take a second here to take the Aion's nib off of this pen. Again, we're putting some Scotch tape over that nib and pulling it off. And then we'll grab our Z50, hug those rails, and slide it in place. And just like that, we have a Lamy Aion with a Z50 nib. I have written with this pen, with this nib, and it writes perfectly fine, the same as pretty much any other Lamy fountain pen. And the cap is able to fully engage, which means that you are able to get a good seal, and the nib is not damaged, so there is enough clearance in this cap to accommodate this nib. But today we're not going to be writing with this nib, we're going to be writing with the Aion nib. So I'm going to grab, again, some Scotch tape, put it over this nib, and give it a pull. And then reattach our Aion nib to our pen. Followed by the cap. And at this point, we are ready to ink up. Inking up the Lamy Aion, today I selected a Lamy ink. This is Lamy Blue Black, and it comes in a really cool ink bottle, which includes an integrated spool of blotting tissue. Let me go ahead and cut off some of that blotting tissue right now. So it's ready to go. We'll open up our bottle of ink, take the cap off the pen, remove the barrel. Make sure the piston in the converter is extended all the way down. Dip the nib into ink and screw up the piston. Typically, I would extend the piston rod one more time to get a full fill, but actually that looks like a good amount of ink. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. Let me grab our blotting tissue and wipe off our section in our nib. I noticed that I do get a little bit of staining on this grip section, so I'm gonna grab some wet paper towel. 1 second. You may see that on pens that have ribs or textured grip sections, but I find that typically wet paper towel is able to take those ink stains right off. We'll go ahead and cap up our bottle of ink. Put the barrel back on our pen, as well as the cap for the pen. And at this point, we're ready to write. Okay, writing with the Lamy Aion. Cap pulls off. And today we have a stainless steel fine nib. And I'm a bit surprised by this nib. I find that the line is quite a bit thinner than standard Lamy pens. It's a bit drier as well. And the polishing on this nib is not nearly as fine as what I see on the Z50. It does have a moderate amount of feedback. I would say a bit more than a number 2 pencil. Of course, this is just one unit. I'm curious for the people out there that have experience with the Aion if their nibs are also similar. In terms of our ink, today we have one also from Lamy, and it is called Blue Black. For flex, I'm going to turn the page. Not much line variation to be had, but you do push out a bit more ink when you spread the tines. So that maybe suggests that this nib does need a bit of tuning. I would probably consider widening the tines and also maybe taking some micro mesh to polish up the tipping material a bit more. But I did want to take a moment before I modify this pen to show you what it's like to write right out of the box. In terms of our reverse writing, feedback is pretty comparable to the front ways up, but we can see it's writing very dry. As I was getting towards the second word, it barely became legible. So for this particular pen, I would not consider reverse writing. So what do I think of the Lamy Aion? I like many aspects of this pen. Overall, the styling I really like. I think it looks very professional and minimalist. The clip is a joy to use. I love that it's spring-loaded and that it can be functioned from the back. That's not something that you typically see on many fountain pens. And the pen itself in the hand is very comfortable. This long grip section with varying degrees of thickness allows you to grip it wherever feels most comfortable for you. And because you can post the cap deeply and securely, it makes for a comfortable writing experience to use both unposted and posted. I also really like that it's a cartridge converter fountain pen. That makes it very easy to maintain. You don't need any special tools to disassemble it, and you can clean out this pen in a matter of minutes. Now, I do find areas for improvement with this pen, and one of them is the material choice. Because this is made out of anodized aluminum, it is pretty lightweight in the hand, and for me, at this price point, I feel like it's a little bit unsubstantial and feels a little bit cheap. I think it'd be nice if Lamy considered making this pen out of stainless steel, titanium, or maybe even brass to add a bit of extra heft and make it feel more premium. Also, I've noticed that the cap on my unit does spin pretty freely, and that makes it feel like it doesn't have the best build quality. Speaking of build quality, I'm not super impressed with this nib. As I mentioned, it's dry and has a pretty large amount of feedback. I don't know if that's my particular unit or if that's standard for all Lamy Aions. And honestly, there might be a lot of people out there that really enjoy this writing experience. But for me, when I grab a fountain pen, I'm usually grabbing it because I want a nice ink flow with a pretty smooth writing experience. And the fact that this pen is compatible with the standard Z50 Nib makes me question why Lamy went to the trouble of making a brand new production line for the nib on this unit. I guess it does look a little bit more fluid because it has those rounded off shoulders, but personally, if it was up to me, I would stick with the tried and true Z50. But overall, I am a big fan of this pen. Again, I love this professional styling that is minimalist and very utilitarian looking. If you are looking for that style and maybe a little bit more of an upscale unit and you are curious to try out a new nib from Lamy, I think this one is a great option. And that just leaves me to say, thank you for watching.